Workers during the Industrial Revolution were notoriously mistreated and worked in dangerous environments. With a newfound reliance on coal miners were in high demand, but this didn't mean they were well treated. Throughout the 1900s, coal miners and other industrial workers fought for better working conditions. In West Virginia, tensions between the workers and operators of the coal mines erupted into violent clashes that shocked the nation. Keep watching to find out more about the West Virginia Coal Wars. The first commercial coal mine in the United States opened in the Macon area near Richmond, Virginia in 1701. By the 1760s, most U.S. colonies had located coal fields, yet they hadn't really had a reason to exploit them. The need for coal rose dramatically during the Industrial Revolution, which began in the U.S. in 1793, when an English immigrant named Samuel Slater opened a textile mill in Pawtucket, Rhode Island. Coal mining reached the area that would soon become West Virginia in the mid-1800s. The bituminous coal, otherwise known as black coal, that was found in the area became highly desired for industrial production, and the demand for West Virginian coal surged by the end of the 19th century. During the early 20th century, coal was used in pretty much all aspects of life, powering steamboats, trains, and streetcars, as well as heating homes and businesses. While the coal mining industry was booming and mine owners reaped the profits, the men and boys who worked in the mine were suffering the highest fatality rates in the perilous industrial sector. The coal mining industry itself was decentralized, disorganized, and dictated by boom and bust cycles. While the Industrial Revolution primarily relied on exploiting laborers for profit, the coal mining industry was amongst the worst culprits. Safety precautions were inadequate, and large-scale disasters were frequent. Miners died in large numbers from fires, natural gas explosions, and roof collapses. Although mining safety laws were generally lacking, the ones in West Virginia were the weakest in the country, and the few rules that did exist weren't enforced. In addition, miners suffered from long hours at low pay, and the majority of the West Virginian miners were forced to live in company towns. Company towns were established where the work was conducted somewhere remote, such as railroads, lumber camps, and coal mines. In these situations, the employer would develop a town where the workers could live, but the company would own the town and all the buildings and businesses therein. This enabled the company to control the lives of the workers, who were then forced to live in company houses and buy from company stores. Sometimes, companies would pay the workers with a scrip, which was essentially tokens that could only be spent at company stores. As these stores would charge whatever they liked, instead of earning money, workers would find themselves in debt with the company. The company towns also used fences and guards to protect the workers, but in reality, it meant they couldn't leave freely. In 1890, coal miners began to turn to unions to try and improve their working conditions. One such union was the United Mine Workers, or UMW. The UMW was founded in the 1890s, and soon the coal miners in West Virginia were trying to get organized in order to fight the injustices of the coal mining industry. However, the mine owners and operators, knowing that a united workforce could be detrimental to their profits, were determined to resist the workers' efforts to unionize. In 1912, the conflict between the workers and their employers erupted into violence. In the Kanawha River coalfields, the workers organized a so-called wildcat strike without the authorization of a union. This strike marked the start of what would become known as the West Virginia Coal Wars. In Paint Creek Valley, union workers requested their employers give them a modest pay raise that was on par with other regional companies. The operators refused, and soon thousands of non-union miners went on strike. Hearing the news, over 7,000 miners in nearby Cabin Creek soon joined them, hoping that they would be able to overpower the oppressive rule of the mining companies. Instead of listening to the workers' demands, the company ordered their guards to start evicting the families of the striking workers from the company towns, after which the miners began to fight back against the guards. The resulting conflict lasted for over a year and resulted in the death of 13 company men and 12 striking miners. Although the striking miners had stopped working without the backing of a union, the UMW wanted to recruit more members in West Virginia and so gave their full support to the Paint Creek and Cabin Creek strikers. The UMW sent their president, Frank Hayes, to the region, along with Mary Mother Jones, the most famous female labor activist of the 19th century. In response, the mine operators recruited strikebreakers from the state of New York and the South. They also hired 300 Baldwin-Felts mine guards. The Baldwin-Felts detective agency was run by a dentist who dreamed of becoming a detective, William Gibney Baldwin, and a lawyer named Thomas Lafayette Felts. The company started out providing investigatory services for train robberies and other crimes, but branched out to providing guards for railway and mining payrolls. These hired guards were notoriously violent in their suppression of miners' strikes. The Baldwin-Felts guards began to construct concrete forts that were outfitted with machine guns throughout the striking area. They aggressively evicted mining families, destroying their personal property and causing an estimated $40,000 worth of damage to the furniture and belongings of the mine workers and their families. Despite the evictions, the companies wanted the miners to return to work, so they stopped mine workers from leaving the area via bridges or trains and mercilessly beat those trying to escape. The mine operators were determined to punish the striking workers, and one display of indiscriminate violence came on the night of February 9, 1913. While the miners slept in Holly Grove, a tent colony that had been established by the UMW, a coal operator named Martin Quinn and Kanawha Sheriff Bonner Hill boarded a train car called the Bull Moose Special. The sides of the train car were reinforced with iron plating, and machine guns were installed inside. Quinn and Hill turned off the lights of the Bull Moose Special and drove it through Holly Grove, firing into the homes and tents. One of the miners, an Italian named Francis Francesco Estep, was shot in the face while protecting his pregnant wife and died. The attack on the camp and murder of Estep made national news and enraged the mining community and much of the public. One merchant was so affected by the story that he sent guns and ammunition to the miners. After the attack, West Virginia's governor, William E. Glasscock, declared martial law and sent in the state militia. The strikers were overjoyed, assuming the militia was there to protect them and restore peace. However, it soon became clear that the governor, and therefore the militia, had sided with the operators. The soldiers began arresting and imprisoning the Union members and the miners, including Mother Jones, and putting them on trial before military tribunals for inciting violence. In contrast, the guards and mine operators faced no consequences for their actions. Although the rest of the country condemned Glasscock's actions, the West Virginia coal fields remained a battlefield. By April, a new governor, Henry Hatfield, had been appointed. Determined to end the strike, he called the UMW and the mine owners to his office to try and hash out an agreement. The coal supplies had dwindled due to the strike, and despite losses in both camps, neither side had made any real progress. Although the meeting seemed promising, the Hatfield contract offered no real concessions to the miners, other than to end the mine guard system and state that union miners would not be discriminated against. The contract failed to recognize the union, but UMW officials were forced to agree to it, and the miners were given 36 hours to get back to work, or martial law would be declared yet again. Although the UMW officials had agreed, many of the miners were not happy with the terms. They organized more wildcat strikes during the following months. Their persistence paid off, and by July, most of the mine owners in Paint and Cabin Creeks had agreed to recognize the union. The experiences of the miners involved in the Paint and Cabin Creek strikes instilled a deep sense of solidarity and allegiance with the union, meaning they were all the more willing to lend their support to other non-unionized miners when the remaining issues once again came to a head. From April 6, 1917 to November 11, 1918, America joined the Allies in World War I. Claims that the U.S. was making the world safe for democracy did not sit well with the non-unionized mine workers in the counties of Mingo, Logan, and McDowell, where they were still suffering under old mining regulations, including the system of mine guards who were suppressing their attempts to organize. After the war ended, the miners felt compelled to fight for better working conditions, and in the spring of 1920, the miners of Mingo County decided to strike. Just as in Paint Creek and Cabin Creek, the mine operators began evicting workers' families from the company towns, who then set up tent camps near Lick Creek. The operators then brought in the Baldwin-Felts Detective Agency to forcibly remove the families camping at Lick Creek. This time, the law did not side with the operators. Sheriff Sid Hatfield and Mayor Cabell Testerman of Mattawan heard about the commotion at the tent colony and decided to investigate. When they got there, they told the Baldwin-Felts agents that they needed to see their warrants for the evictions. The Baldwin-Felts guards had not actually obtained warrants. They were illegally conducting the evictions, yet they claimed that the evictions had been sanctioned by a court order, although they were unable to produce any warrants. Later that day, the Baldwin-Felts agents arrived in Mattawan and confronted Hatfield and Testerman. tensions rose, especially between Albert Felts, the brother of Thomas Felts, and Sheriff Hatfield, who both thought they had a right to arrest the other. The argument soon became a gunfight that claimed the lives of Mayor Testament, 2 townspeople, Albert Felts, his brother Lee, and 7 other Baldwin-Felts agents. A year later, on August 1, 1921, Hatfield and another man, Deputy Ed Chambers, were murdered by Baldwin-Felts agents. The murders prompted Union members to submit a list of demands to West Virginia Governor Ephraim Morgan, in which they expounded on the mistreatment of the miners and the brutal activities of the Baldwin-Felts guards. On August 17th, Morgan refused to concede to the Union's demands or take action against the Baldwin-Felts guards. Morgan's response prompted thousands of armed miners from across the country to travel to Marmot to avenge the murders and free Union miners who had been jailed under martial law. Morgan tried to suppress the miners, dispatching the state police and petitioning the government to send in federal troops. The request was refused, and Morgan decided to try and assemble a home guard. Although many sympathized with the miners, people were aware of the bloodshed that was to come, and many supporters of their cause, including Mother Jones, tried to dissuade them from continuing. Despite the resistance, the miners continued, planning to cross Blair Mountain, which was defended by the notoriously anti-Union sheriff of Logan County, Don Chafin. By August 25th, around 5,000 miners had gathered and clashed with Chafin's men. The Battle of Blair Mountain continued until September 2nd, when President Harding called in the army. Although the violence was over, the miners' struggle continued, and in 1922, over 500 pro-Union marchers were indicted by the state of West Virginia. Working with the private coal companies, the state levied charges of treason, murder, accessory to murder, and conspiracy to commit murder on those arrested. Ultimately, only a handful of defendants stood trial. While the individual men were tried for their actions at Blair Mountain, the court case highlighted and publicized the extent to which state officials would go to suppress workers and prevent them from organizing. One witness for the defense, a U.S. Army infantry captain, even testified that the miners only sought to protect women and children from Chafin's men rather than wage war on the government. Although the trials were a moral success for the Unions and the coal wars were over, the Union's treasury was depleted and they could no longer support the mining families that continued to strike in West Virginia. Despite a lack of Union support, the West Virginian coal miners continued to fight for their rights until the 1930s, when national statutes granted the right to organize labor unions. How would you like to get a deeper understanding of history, impress your friends, and predict the future more accurately based on past events? If this sounds like something you might be into, then check out the brand new Captivating History Book Club by clicking the first link in the description. To learn more about the West Virginia Coal Wars, check out our book, The West Virginia Coal Wars, a captivating guide to the mine wars and the Battle of Blair Mountain, the largest labor uprising in the history of the United States. It's available as an ebook, paperback, and audiobook. Also, grab your free Mythology Bundle ebook while it's still available. All links are in the description. If you found the video captivating, please hit the like button and subscribe for more videos like this.